Hello and welcome to Talking Points here on France 24. After days of uncertainty, Ireland has finally called Europe to the rescue. With its bank on the brink of collapse and its budget deficit skyrocketing, the Irish government felt it had no choice but ask the European Union and the International Monetary Fund for financial help. The package, which is currently being negotiated, is estimated at between 80 to 90 billion euro. So is the storm over, or will other countries, such as Portugal and Spain, for example, and eventually the euro, come under fire from global financial markets? So with me to discuss the issue today is Ali Fatemi, who's a professor of economics at the American Graduate School. Hello and welcome. And also on the set is Frédéric Bonnevet, who is an associate expert with the Institut Montaigne and a member of the Fiscal Policy Forum. Hello and welcome.
Thanks.
Mr. Fatemi, first of all, do you think the situation in Ireland is solved, or is there still a lot of work to do?
I personally think that Ireland is the easiest case because it has tremendous potential. Unlike Greece, it can pay its debt, and the only thing that it has lasted so long is because the Irish did not want to accept the conditions that the Europeans were going to impose on them, which is to do away with their low corporate tax, which is 12.5%. And that's why they were hesitant. And now that the Europeans know they have no choice, they have to help Ireland, because if they don't, Portugal and Spain would be next in line. I believe Ireland can do well because it has a very good prospect of foreign direct investment. As it has shown in the past, many companies are going to go there, especially in high-tech, like Intel and Google, which is already there, and other companies. So I don't think the problem is going to be Ireland as much as whether there would be a contagion for the other countries. On that, I think jury is out. We really don't know how far this is going to go.
Right. Obviously, we've had we've had the Greek episodes a couple of months ago. People thought, okay, there was a threat on the Eurozone, but now we have this Irish crisis now.
Absolutely. Well, the Greek benefited from what could be called the first mover advantage again, since the first rescue package that was put together by the European Union and the IMF had a clear impact on Greek public finances. Bond yield fell dramatically, which is not the case for the Irish crisis that we're into right now. And that's probably why I would tend not to agree with you, if I may, since I believe the Irish case could be far more problematic than the Greek one. On the Greek side, we have a clear public finance problem, i.e. it's the state that's over-indebted. In the Irish case, it's a private sector problem, and that's far more intricate.
The banks especially,
The banks, and also the households, but the banks primarily. In Ireland, you had three basic mistakes that were made. First, an excessive public spending, which is pretty much the case for every country in Europe. B, an excessive dependency on the housing sector. And C, a retreat on fiscal receipts by the state with this very low 12.5% corporate tax, which, of course, reduced the fiscal room for action of the government.
So, I mean, which is the model, if I may say, in a negative way, for other European countries? Is it Greece or is it Ireland?
Well, Greece was mishandled. There's no question about it. But I think we disagree because Ireland is a much sounder economy. Already right now they have more than 20 billion euros stashed away, while Greece didn't have anything. Greece just came, with hat in hand. In the case of Ireland, that's not the case, and I think the prospects. It has a young labor force. It attracts foreign investment. Its record in the past has been far better than Greece, and I have no doubt that it will pay. The government got involved because too soon they came out and they said, we guarantee all the banks. They shouldn't have done that. And I think also the Germans are at fault because when Mrs. Merkel got the agreement that some countries should go to default, sovereign default, which is right, they did not come out and say how and when. And I think that panicked many of the bond sellers. They started selling, and as a result of that, yields started surging up, and the other countries were in danger. So I think we disagree on the basis of I think Ireland is in a far better position than Greece or perhaps many other southern countries, because of its labor force, because of its education, and because of the amount of foreign investment that it has attracted in the past and it will do again.
Essentially because of very low corporate taxes, and that is the principal source of Irish growth.
Yes.
And again, that is very fragile, and that has probably come to an end now. So the Irish problem should be solved through the banks. And unfortunately, as proved by the Heilmann case back in 2008, bank interconnectedness is a real, true, hard problem to tackle. So we have a long way to go in the Irish case, and it's far from being solved. Whereas on the Greek side, I'm not saying it's nothing. Of course, it's also very intricate and very delicate. But reforming the state is a well-trodden path, and what needs to be done is pretty much well known.
Well, the Irish are going to defend their taxes the way Texans defend their right to hold guns. I don't think the Irish are going to give up on their taxes.
Right. I mean, the government is a very difficult situation because there's a lot of opposition to giving up independence and essentially accepting very harsh conditions from the European Union.
Which is why we have so much political turmoil right now in Ireland. But again, I'd like to stress the importance of solving this bank problem in Ireland, because that is the heart of the issue.
But is this a problem also in other European countries? As I mentioned, we had Greece, now we have Ireland. It's kind of like a whack-a-mole game where you're wondering, okay, I'm going to solve this problem. Where is the next one going to erupt? I mean, is this a fantasy or is this a reality?
No, it's nowhere near to being fantasy. And of course, we could even say that Greece and Ireland are, the canaries in the coal mine. The big problem is Spain, the fourth biggest economy in Europe, in the Eurozone.
Before Portugal.
Way before Portugal. And Spain is, I would say, on the Irish side of the game, i.e. it really has a banking problem. 5 cajas, 5 local banks failed in the country. And everybody knows, it's not a secret that the Spanish banks are in a really difficult position right now. So it could happen that the Spanish overdependency on housing and the Spanish banking issues could lead the country on the path on which Ireland is now.
So do you agree that Spain might have the Irish disease?
Yes, I agree on that one, but I disagree on the fact that I think southern European countries, Mediterranean countries are in trouble because they're not competitive, their wages are too high. Ireland doesn't have that problem, and I think in the long run, the fundamentals for Ireland are far safer than Portugal or Spain.
Why is it? Do you agree with his assessment of why Spain and maybe Portugal are in danger right now?
Yes, I would, of course, put Portugal before Spain. And God forbid, I think if Spain goes under, I don't think even IMF and all the money that Germany can put together would be sufficient. If Spain goes down, I think the euro is then really in trouble.
I think your analysis would be valid if every country was independent from the others. And a completely interconnected and a completely linked and network economy is just not possible to apply this framework.
Not in terms of attracting foreign investment. Why should somebody go to Spain?
Certainly so.
Well, but then the record shows that Spain has had, that Portugal, that Ireland has...
Greece and Ireland.
Yes, no, Ireland in particular has attracted far more direct foreign investment, and it will in the future because it has
foreign shopping, because of very low taxes,
because of taxes, and because of the good labor force, because rent is lower now in Ireland, wages are lower, and it has a competitive advantage.
Essentially and fundamentally due to a stark contrast between the European average and the Irish case, which is now gone.
But
so this advantage is just over.
We'll see. We'll see whether they change their tax system.
The fundamentals may be sounder, but marginally speaking, it's just the case that Ireland is pretty much worse off than Greece is.
Right. I just want to get back to Spain and maybe other countries, because you mentioned something in passing, but that's quite important. Sure. The threat over the euro itself. I mean, we've talked about it during the Greek crisis. Now there's talk about this. I mean, is this an exaggerated threat, a dire strait, and something, or something that's maybe really making its way, and that people think, yes, the euro is not assured for the future?
It's not assured for the future should Spain fail. Right now we have I believe one advantage, which is very temporary and very transient, which is the quantitative easing policy applied by the Fed, since that more or less devalues the dollar for now, and that will ultimately force the ECB into taking action. And I think that we've seen the first signs of this policy emerging over the past few days, since over 700 million euros of Irish debt was bought directly by the ECB in the market.
European Central Bank.
This may be very small, but it's a first sign, and I believe it'll come out and materialize.
Right. I mean, after the Greek crisis, the European Union put together a 750 billion euro stabilization fund, which was used for Greece and with the IMF. But will this be enough if it has to tackle a big economy like Spain, or is it already kind of too little, too late?
I don't believe so. I believe what will save euro is if they allow some countries to default, because people who buy these bonds must be able to distinguish between a country with good credit and bad credit. As long as no country can default and everybody thinks that Europe is going to come to the rescue, this scenario will continue. But the moment there are some regulations in place that it is possible for sovereign states to default, then I think there would be a differentiation between how people, whether somebody wants to buy Greek bonds or the same way.
But is it politically feasible? I mean, it's a very difficult situation. The euro is supposed to be a common currency, so if you start to distinguish between the good euros and the bad euros, it's a political problem.
That's a real problem. Still, I sympathize with with this argument, and I believe that, yes, we should have a clear mechanism for default in Europe. Now, I don't believe we should really activate it. We should have, on the one hand, we should clarify what could be done, but try to find first a common solution, a coordinated one, because we can't have a common currency and completely disentangled fiscal policies in Europe.
One question that hangs over this is the attitude of Germany, the biggest economy. When during the Greek crisis there was a lot of hesitation from Chancellor Merkel about going to the rescue of Greece. I mean, do you think eventually Germany will get fed up with kind of coming to the rescue of other European countries, and that could become an issue?
I think my colleague just pointed out the essential problem started when you have unified monetary policy and different fiscal policies. The more they get closer to having a more common fiscal policy, I think the problem will go away. But we are far, far from that, and I think sooner or later, it's not only Germany, I think the entire international community is not going to stand for irresponsibility of certain governments like Greek government and so on. There has to be some punishment for those countries that do not manage their books properly, and you just can't spend on somebody else's credit.
Credible potential punishment, yes, but the emergency lies elsewhere for now. But what is completely clear to me is that without a completely unified Franco-German action and policy, Europe goes nowhere.
But do you think, the French and the Germans will stay together if they need to go and rescue Spain, for instance?
Well, they have to, but ultimately they have to help the other countries help themselves. So those countries should implement a credible fiscal plan for active consolidation.
Okay, well, thank you very much to both of you. We'll see how the euro, Spain, and other countries fare in the coming weeks, but obviously very interesting things happening on the financial markets. Thank you for watching Talking Points on France 24.